There is a quiet feeling that creeps in when you look around and believe everyone else is ahead. It does not shout. It whispers. It tells you that you are behind, that you started too late, that somehow everyone else received an instruction manual for life, and you did not. On Stoicism Breath, we need to address that feeling directly because it quietly damages real people, and it is built almost entirely on illusion. Your life is not a race with a universal finish line. There is no cosmic scoreboard where someone else getting promoted lowers your value. There is no expiration date stamped on your purpose or your growth. The idea that you must achieve certain milestones by a certain age is largely a cultural script. It is repeated so often that it feels like truth, but repetition does not make it real. Psychologists have studied social comparison for decades. What they consistently find is that the more we compare our internal struggles to other people's external successes, the more anxious and dissatisfied we become. Why? Because we are comparing two completely different things. We compare the behind the scenes of our life to the highlight reel of theirs. You see their celebration post. You do not see the years of doubt that came before it. You see the finished product. You do not see the private failures, the sleepless nights, the moments when they questioned everything. Every person who looks like they have it figured out has walked through confusion that never made it online. You are comparing your 3 a.m. thoughts to their filtered afternoon announcement. That comparison will always feel unfair because it is. Life moves in seasons. Some seasons are for building foundations that are invisible. Think of someone going back to school in their 40s. On the outside, it may look like a delay. On the inside, it is preparation. Some seasons are for learning skills quietly, for strengthening your health, for repairing relationships, for healing old wounds. Other seasons are for waiting, and waiting is deeply uncomfortable in a culture that rewards speed. But there are lessons in waiting that cannot be learned while rushing. Patience, emotional regulation, trust in your own timing. Research on long-term goal achievement shows that sustainable success is more often tied to consistency than intensity. Slow, steady effort compounds over time even when there is no applause. Some seasons are for healing. That may look like therapy, or setting boundaries, or finally addressing burnout instead of ignoring it. Healing seasons rarely look impressive from the outside, but they prevent future collapse. And then there are rising seasons, moments when what you have quietly built finally begins to show. Those seasons feel almost effortless not because they are easy, but because you are finally aligned with your timing rather than fighting it. You cannot force spring in the middle of winter. You can try. You can push yourself to perform growth before you are ready. But forcing bloom before roots are deep enough only exhausts you. The season shifts when it shifts. And when it does, movement feels natural because the groundwork has already been laid. Maya Angelou once said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." That distinction matters. Defeat is an event. Being defeated is a decision. You can lose a round without losing the fight. You can experience a delay without losing your direction. Slow progress is still progress. A small improvement in your health. A difficult conversation you finally had. A boundary you set. A new habit you practice for 1 week. These may not look dramatic, but they move you forward. Sometimes, the seasons that feel like standing still are the most important ones. Stillness gives you perspective. It allows you to listen. It strengthens parts of you that speed would have ignored. On Stoicism Breath, we return to this grounding reminder: your timeline is not broken. It is unfolding. You are not late to your own life. You are in the exact season that is shaping you for what comes next. And that shaping, even when it feels slow, is not wasted time. There are lessons you can only learn when everything external is stripped away. Lessons about what you truly value. About who you really are when the job title, the relationship status, the income number, and the applause are removed. Seeds grow in silence long before they ever break through the surface. The real work happens underground in the dark where no one is watching. And then one day, without warning, something appears. Something that was always forming. Something that was always on its way. You just could not see it from where you were standing. You are not late. You are not a failed version of someone else's life. You are in the exact position required to become who you are meant to become. Your moment will arrive not because you forced it, but because you stayed steady long enough to meet it. On Stoicism Breath, it is important to say one more thing about timelines. The problem may not be your progress. The problem may be the metric you are using to measure it. If your measurement is how quickly did you hit certain visible milestones, how fast did you buy the house, build a business, get married, retire early, then you will always find someone who did it faster. That kind of measuring stick guarantees dissatisfaction. It is a race with no finish line and an endless field of competitors. But what if you changed the metric? What if the measure became how deeply do you know yourself? How honest are you in your relationships? How steady are you under pressure? How much stronger is your nervous system than it was a year ago? How capable are you of sitting with discomfort without running from it? Research in psychology shows that emotional regulation and self-awareness are stronger predictors of long-term well-being than income or status alone. Those qualities are built slowly, often painfully, and almost always invisibly. By those measures, what you are living through right now might be the most productive chapter of your entire life. Even if it does not look impressive from the outside. Even if it does not feel successful on the inside. The most meaningful growth rarely photographs well. It rarely announces itself. But it changes everything. Now consider this. The version of you that survives this season will be unrecognizable. Pain changes you. Not always in dramatic ways. Not always in ways others can see. But it reaches deep and rearranges priorities. It clarifies what matters. It exposes what was noise disguised as importance. The person who walks out of this chapter will not be the same person who walked into it. And that is not something to mourn. It is something to respect. The strongest people are not those who avoided pain. They are the ones who walked through it and refused to let it harden them in the wrong direction. They allowed the fire to burn away what was false. The performance. The need for approval. The identity built only on comfort and external validation. What remains after that burning is something real. Something that does not collapse when circumstances shift. Right now you may feel fragile. Like parts of your identity are cracking. Like structures you relied on are no longer stable. But what if this is not destruction? What if this is excavation? Life is peeling back layers you no longer need. The armor you built for a different chapter. The beliefs you inherited without questioning. The version of yourself that was shaped more by expectation than by character. Excavation feels messy. It feels uncertain. But it reveals foundations. When everything unnecessary falls away, you are left with something quieter and stronger. A self that is not borrowed from circumstances but built from within. And that version of you, the one forged in honesty and pressure, will carry your future far more steadily than the version built only in comfort ever could. transformation hurts. Of course it does. When old layers are stripped away, it is uncomfortable. When beliefs are challenged and identities shift, it can feel like something inside you is cracking. But what is revealed in that process is real. And what is real is always stronger than anything built on illusion. Ernest Hemingway once wrote that the world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. Think about that image. When a bone breaks and heals correctly, the healed area becomes denser and stronger than it was before. When metal is exposed to high heat and carefully worked, it hardens. Stress, when managed properly, does not only damage, it strengthens. The areas where you feel most wounded today may become the places where you stand most firmly tomorrow. Not in spite of what happened, but because of how you responded to it. Pain forces you to discover capacities you did not know you had. You begin to notice a steadiness that does not depend on everything going well. A confidence that is not built on applause or easy wins, but on lived experience. There is a major difference between confidence built on comfort and confidence built on survival. Easy success feels good, but it can be shaken by the next setback. The confidence that comes from walking through difficulty and keeping your integrity intact is roots. It does not collapse when circumstances change. It holds during storms. What you are losing in this season is not your true self. What you are losing is the version of yourself that depended on certain conditions staying the same. The identity wrapped around a specific job, a specific relationship, a specific outcome. What you are gaining is deeper. You are gaining a self that can sit with uncertainty without falling apart. A self that does not panic the moment plans shift. Do not confuse transformation with collapse. What is dissolving was never the whole of you. It was an outer layer shaped by comfort and expectation. The person being revealed underneath is more honest, more grounded, and more capable than the one who only existed inside a comfort zone. You are not breaking. You are becoming. And the wisdom you carry forward from this season could never have been developed in an easy life. Now let us talk about courage, because we often misunderstand it. We imagine courage as something dramatic and cinematic. A hero charging into battle. A bold speech in front of thousands. One giant decision that changes everything overnight. We measure our ordinary, messy lives against that image and conclude that we are not brave. But real courage rarely looks like that. Real courage is quiet. It is getting out of bed when you would rather stay under the covers. It is going to work when anxiety tells you to hide. It is having an honest conversation even when your voice shakes. It is sitting with a difficult emotion instead of numbing it with distraction. It is choosing to believe things can improve even when there is no immediate evidence. These moments do not attract applause. They happen in private. No one posts about them. No one hands out awards. But they are the substance of a courageous life. Thousands of small decisions accumulated over years where you chose to show up instead of disappear. If courage feels out of reach right now, look closely at what you are already doing. You are still here. You are engaging with your life. You are listening to words about endurance and hope instead of surrendering completely to despair. That matters. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in the presence of it. And every small act of showing up even when you feel tired, uncertain, or fragile is practice. At Stoicism Breath, we return to this simple truth: courage is built quietly in ordinary days. And if you are still choosing to face this day, then you are already practicing it. That is courage. Small, quiet, almost invisible, but completely real. Brené Brown, who has spent years researching vulnerability, says that courage begins with showing up and allowing ourselves to be seen. Not performing certainty. Not pretending to be fine when we are not. Just showing up honestly with what we actually have in this moment. That is the threshold. That is where strength begins. You do not have to feel brave. You do not have to feel confident or ready. You only have to be willing. Willing to face what is in front of you as it actually is. Willing to take the next step without knowing exactly where it leads. Willing to trust that persistence matters even when the results are invisible. Here is something powerful about quiet, consistent courage. It compounds. Neuroscience shows that each time you face a fear instead of avoiding it, your brain slightly reduces its alarm response the next time. You build evidence. You teach your nervous system that discomfort is survivable. Each small act of showing up becomes a deposit into a private account of self-trust. Over time, you build a track record with yourself. And one day, you realize something has shifted. You are no longer hoping you can endure hard things. You know you can. Not as a motivational idea, but as lived experience. You have done it before quietly and perfectly without applause. Panic tries to interrupt that process. It tells you that one wrong move will ruin everything. That if you cannot do it perfectly, you should not try at all. This is one of the most damaging lies anxiety tells, because it freezes you at the exact moment when imperfect action is the only way forward. Courage is not the absence of mistakes. It is the decision to keep going despite them. The version of you who keeps practicing courage in small unseen ways becomes surprisingly difficult to break. Not because fear disappears, but because fear no longer has the final say. Life rarely changes through one dramatic leap. It changes through the accumulation of thousands of small steps taken in the right direction. Through showing up for your own life again and again, especially when it is hard. Do not underestimate what you are already doing. Do not dismiss the strength it takes to simply remain engaged. Every day you move through is evidence. Every time you choose not to quit is proof that something steady is forming inside you. Now let us speak to something deeper. You may be carrying a heavy weight right now. Fear. Grief. A kind of exhaustion that sits in your bones. Maybe even a quiet belief that things will not improve. That the life you hoped for is no longer possible. That the ground has shifted in a way that cannot be undone. I want to address that belief directly. It is not true. I understand why it feels true. When you are inside a difficult season, it can feel permanent, like geography instead of weather. But history and psychology tell a different story. Human beings adapt. Seasons shift. Circumstances evolve. Not just in the lives of famous people who overcame dramatic odds. In ordinary lives. In people who felt exactly what you feel now. People who were convinced their situation was the exception. The one that would never change. It changed. Life is moving even when it feels still. The river flows even when the surface looks calm. Beneath the surface, adjustments are happening. Growth is forming. Conditions are shifting in ways you cannot yet measure. Change is not something you have to earn. It is not something reserved for the lucky. It is built into the nature of life itself. Seasons do not require your permission to turn. They turn because that is what seasons do. At Stoicism Breath, this is the truth that outlasts panic. What feels frozen is still in motion. What feels permanent is still evolving. And if you are still here, still willing, still taking small steps, then you are already moving with that change even if you cannot yet see where it is leading. Nothing in life stays the same. Not pain. Not grief. not confusion, not even the panic that tries to convince you that this is how it will always be. If you are listening to this right now, and it feels like you are stuck in something heavy and unmovable, I want you to hear this clearly. Change is not a rare event. It is the fundamental nature of life itself. Every trial you are walking through is shaping you, even if you cannot see how yet. Think about that for a moment. The sleepless nights, the difficult conversations, the silent battles no one else knows about. They are not meaningless. They are building something in you. Research in psychology shows that adversity, when faced rather than avoided, can strengthen resilience and emotional regulation. In simple terms, when you move through hard things, your nervous system learns that you can survive them. That is not weakness. That is training. Every loss, as painful and real as it is, creates space. Sometimes we lose a job, a relationship, a version of ourselves we thought would last forever. And it feels like something has been taken from us. But often, that space becomes the exact opening that allows something new to enter. A different path, a healthier boundary, a more honest version of who we are. The old life could not hold it. This season can. Every pause, every waiting period, every stretch of silence that feels like nothing is happening is often preparation. You may not see it yet. You may not even believe it. But the version of you that walks through this season will not be the same person who entered it. You will be harder to break. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you will know, from lived experience, that you can handle when things go wrong. That is a deeper confidence. Not the kind that comes from everything going well. Not the kind that depends on praise or perfect outcomes. But the kind that says, even if this falls apart, I will find a way to stand again. That kind of confidence cannot be given to you. It is earned quietly through endurance. And here is what I want you to hold on to. Your past is full of proof. Think back. Every season you have survived. Every night that felt endless. Every time the ground seemed to disappear beneath you, and you had to find some other surface to stand on. You survived all of it. You are here. That is evidence. You are not weak. You are not trapped. You are not behind in life. You are not too broken, too lost, or too late. You are in the middle of a season. And seasons end. They always do. Winter does not argue with spring. It gives way to it. You have endured every season before this one. You will endure this one too. Not because it is easy. Not because you feel strong right now. But because underneath your fear there is a deep habit of endurance. A quiet strength that has carried you further than you realize. So right now, I want you to breathe. Really breathe. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Take a slow inhale through your nose and a longer exhale through your mouth. When we slow our breathing, we signal safety to the body. Heart rate lowers. Muscles soften. The brain shifts out of fight or flight. You do not have to fight the fact that this is hard. It is hard. And you are handling it. Not perfectly. Not without fear. But you are still here. You are still choosing your life instead of walking away from it. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Trust yourself enough to take the next small step. Not the whole staircase. Not the entire 5-year plan. Just the next step. Send the email. Make the appointment. Go for the walk. Have the conversation. The road reveals itself as you walk it. Clarity comes from movement, not from standing still and demanding certainty. Life will change. It always does. The only real question was whether you would still be standing when it did. And you are? You already are. So keep going. Your story is not over. You are still the one holding the pen. Before this ends, I want you to carry one clear truth with you. Not a perfect solution. Not a detailed roadmap. Just this. You are not alone in this. Every person who has ever felt the ground give way beneath them. Every person who has stared at a future that looked impossible. Every person who has lost sleep over a life that did not look the way they hoped. They were not abandoned by life. And neither are you. Panic is loud. It tells dramatic stories. But it is not the whole story. It never has been. The fact that you are still here, still breathing, still trying, is enough for today. In fact, it is everything. If this message resonated with you, I want you to write this in the comments. I am stronger than my fears. Let that be more than words. Let it be a reminder of the strength you are already practicing every single day. This is Stoicism Breath. And as long as you are still here, the next chapter is still being written. Keep going.